Throughout life, we are constantly torn between two choices: living true to ourselves or living in alignment with the majority. Both directions have their own merits. However, society tends to favor consensus, often pressuring individuals to conform. Being different is too often equated with being wrong, misguided, or naive. But what if deviation from the crowd is not a sign of confusion, but of clarity? What if it's not recklessness, but a reflection of one's capacity to think independently, choose consciously, and live authentically? The truth is, walking a different path is not a flaw. It's often a signal of awareness and ownership. A person who chooses to live outside the framework of social expectations is not necessarily lost. They may be someone who has awakened to the responsibility of building a life from within, not from without. The crowd, a sweet but limiting comfort zone. There is a strange kind of ease in doing what everyone else is doing. The crowd offers us more than just company, it offers cover. When we follow the herd, we minimize the risk of standing out, of being judged, of making the wrong choice. Trends, templates, and familiar norms provide a roadmap that promises security. And when things go wrong, we rarely feel alone in our mistakes, because we can always say, but everyone else did it too. This instinct isn't inherently wrong. As humans, we are wired for connection. Belonging is a survival need, not a weakness. We crave community and shared direction. We want to feel part of something larger than ourselves. And often, the collective voice feels safer than the uncertain murmur of our own. But this safety can become a trap. The problem begins when the need to belong silences the need to be true, when we let approval speak louder than conviction, when we exchange authenticity for acceptance. Slowly, we lose sight of who we are, not because we're weak, but because it's really hard to stand alone in a world that celebrates sameness. Yet, history is not shaped by those who blend in. It is shaped by those who step out, the ones who dare to ask uncomfortable questions, who decline the easy path in favor of the right one, who refuse to shrink themselves to fit into boxes they never asked to be placed in. These are not rebels without a cause. They are women and men led by conscience, not crowd. And so not following the crowd is not a rejection of people. It is a return to self. When you choose your own path, you will sometimes walk it alone. You may feel misunderstood, doubted, or dismissed. But you will also feel something else: freedom. The kind of freedom that comes from honoring your inner compass over external noise. The kind of clarity that cannot be bought with likes or applause. Because at the end of the day, what matters is not how many people walked with you, but whether you walked in the direction of your own truth. Who is the do-it-yourselfer? There is a quiet strength in those who choose to step away from the crowd, not out of rebellion, but out of recognition. Recognition of who they are, what they value, and the kind of life they are willing to build, even if it means walking an unfamiliar road. These individuals, the do-it-yourselfers, are not simply nonconformists. They are not driven by a need to oppose, but by a need to align. Their motivation is not rejection for rejection's sake, but a thoughtful curation of what belongs in their life and what does not. They understand that not every tradition deserves continuation, and not every norm deserves loyalty. They are not blind critics of society. On the contrary, they are discerning participants. They know how to listen, reflect, and then choose. Some tools they keep, others they discard. But every decision is theirs, and that is what makes them sovereign. Sovereignty, not stubbornness, defines their path. It is the ability to stand by one's truth, even when it contradicts the dominant narrative. It is the willingness to carry the weight of self-authorship, even when it comes with solitude. And it is the courage to build a life without needing validation for every brick laid. To live this way is not easy. It demands clarity, inner grounding, and often an uncheckable calm in the face of misunderstanding. But what it gives in return is far greater. A life that reflects who you truly are, not who you were told to be. Because in the end, true strength lies not in echoing the crowd, but in having the quiet confidence to echo your own soul. The power of going against the grain. It's not about seeking attention or defying norms for the sake of defiance. It's not about loud resistance or making a scene. Instead, it's a quiet, steady choice to live in alignment with your values, even when those values aren't reflected back to you by the crowd. To choose your own path, especially when it diverges from what's expected, takes an extraordinary kind of courage. Not the kind fueled by pride or ego, but the kind grounded in truth. The kind that says, I would rather be misunderstood for being real than applauded for being a copy. This kind of living isn't glamorous. It's not always Instagrammable, but it is deeply fulfilling. Because when you choose what is right for you, not what is easy or trending or applauded, you begin to build a life of substance, not just surface. In a world obsessed with sameness, true originality is rare. But it doesn't come from trying to stand out. It comes from daring to stand still in who you are. From choosing honesty over approval, direction over distraction, and integrity over image. And what emerges from that place of authenticity is not just a unique life, but often a quietly revolutionary one. One that inspires not because it shouts, but because it resonates. Because it reminds others that they too are allowed to choose differently. They too are allowed to pause, reflect, and walk another way. So no, going against the grain isn't about drama. It's about depth. It's not about being contrarian, it's about being conscious. And it's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about proving to yourself that your voice, your truth, your path matters. Because the strongest kind of power isn't loud or showy. It's the steady, unwavering kind that comes from living a life that is truly yours. 1. Being different means being rebellious. This is one of the most common misconceptions and one of the most damaging. The image of a person choosing an unconventional path is often misunderstood as defiance, someone deliberately resisting norms just for the sake of confrontation. But authentic difference is not rooted in rebellion. It is rooted in awareness. To be rebellious is to be reactive. It means shaping your decisions as a response to others, driven by the desire to disrupt, reject, or oppose. While rebellion has its place, especially in oppressive systems, it is not the same as conscious self-direction. The do-it-yourselfer isn't driven by the urge to fight, but by the need to align. They don't break from the crowd of anger, they simply no longer fit within it. Their choices are not designed to shock, but to reflect something genuine. They don't crave attention, they crave truth. And if truth leads them off the beaten path, so be it. What's more, those who live authentically are often surprisingly humble. They're not shouting, "Look at me," they're quietly saying, "This feels right." The world may mislabel them as rebels, but in reality, they're listeners to their own intuition, to deeper values, and to the life they want to live with integrity. To reduce their journey to mere rebellion is to misunderstand the courage it takes to honor your inner voice in a world that often insists you silence it. If no one else is doing it, it must be wrong. This assumption is rooted in a deep-seated fear, the fear of being alone in the unknown. Human beings are wired for social validation, so when our thoughts or actions don't align with the majority, we often experience self-doubt. The crowd becomes a kind of moral compass, and its popularity becomes a proxy for truth. But the reality is far more complex. The path of least resistance is often the path of least awareness. What is commonly accepted is not necessarily what is deeply examined. And what is widely practiced is not always what is wisely chosen. If no one else is doing something, that doesn't make it wrong. It may simply mean that others haven't dared. Many truths begin as quiet thoughts in solitary minds. Progress often arrives in the form of discomfort. Insight, innovation, and vision typically emerge in the shadows before being accepted in the spotlight. The world tends to celebrate pioneers only after their solitude has proven fruitful. Until then, their difference is met with skepticism or worse, ridicule. But what is truly right often exists beyond popularity. It requires patience to mature and courage to protect. Following the crowd may give temporary comfort, but if the direction is misguided, then doing so is not safety, it is self-abandonment. And sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is what everyone else is doing without question. In contrast, choosing your own way, even if it's uncertain, can be the most honest, brave, and ultimately wise decision you make. Doing your own thing is selfish. This myth stems from a distorted view of individuality, as if caring for your own direction means caring less for others. But true independence isn't about isolation or indifference. It is, at its core, about clarity and contribution. When someone lives in alignment with their values, passions, and inner compass, they often become more grounded, more inspired, and more capable of meaningful connection. They are not acting against the world. They are acting from a place of wholeness within it. Self-directed individuals don't need external validation to function. This inner self-sufficiency allows them to give more freely without needing something in return. They don't serve out of obligation or guilt, but out of authentic desire. And that makes their presence more generous, not less. Moreover, doing your own thing often means doing the hard thing. It means reflecting, questioning, growing, and sometimes enduring long periods of misunderstanding or solitude. That kind of effort isn't self-indulgence, it's self-responsibility. In a world where many follow the script, those who dare to write their own often carry the emotional labor of reflection not just for themselves, but for others who are watching quietly from the sidelines. They become a mirror, a possibility, a permission slip for others to do the same. Far from selfish, this path can be profoundly service-oriented because it springs not from fear or pressure, but from intention and purpose. And people who live with purpose often lift the world, even as they walk it differently. When is it time to choose a different path? Being different simply for the sake of being different is not true freedom. It is, in fact, another kind of dependence. It depends on the existence of a crowd to push against, an external other to define yourself in opposition to. This kind of difference is fragile and reactive. It loses meaning the moment the crowd changes direction. It is not born from within, but borrowed from the outside. True difference, the kind that matters, arises not from opposition, but from self-awareness. It is the natural expression of an individual who's looked deeply inward and made peace with their own values, desires, and truths. It is the quiet power of transformation, a seed planted in honesty and nurtured by courage. You should consider stepping off the well-worn path and going your own way when you feel that the direction everyone else is heading toward rings hollow and empty inside you. When the collective chorus of opinions and expectations no longer aligns with the compass within your heart, it is a signal to pause and listen more closely to yourself. When the life that is expected of you feels less like a reflection of your true self and more like a mask you wear for others, it's time to ask, who am I really living for? When the thought of following the crowd feels like betraying your own soul, the choice becomes clear because no external validation can replace the peace of living authentically. Choosing your own path does not require loud declarations or dramatic gestures. It does not demand boldness in the conventional sense. What it requires first and foremost is honesty, an honest look at your fears, your hopes, and your deepest truths. It is this honesty that creates the foundation for courage, even when that courage means standing alone. The discomfort of solitude is real and often intimidating, but it pales in comparison to the lifelong cost of ignoring your inner voice. To silence yourself for the sake of fitting in is to sacrifice your own potential, your own happiness, and ultimately, your own freedom. So take heart in this. You do not have to be fearless to begin. You only have to be truthful. The rest will follow, step by step, as you learn to trust the power of being unapologetically you. Becoming a do-it-yourselfer is a journey, not a label. Being a do-it-yourselfer doesn't mean rejecting help, wisdom, or guidance. It means developing the discernment to decide when to listen, whom to trust, and how to integrate advice without losing your own voice. It involves, first and foremost, it begins with truly knowing yourself beyond just your likes and dislikes, but understanding how to distinguish between fear and genuine intuition. Often, fear can cloud our inner voice, causing us to confuse what we should avoid with what we are truly meant to pursue. This clarity helps you walk your own path with steadiness, rather than being led astray by fleeting emotions or external pressures. Next is the art of listening selectively. You open your heart to the world, welcoming new ideas and experiences, yet you don't allow yourself to become overly influenced or lose your direction amid the noise around you. It's like having a finely tuned filter between you and the outside world, allowing only what truly matters to shape your decisions and outlook. Most importantly, you must learn to take full ownership of your choices, regardless of how things turn out. You'll make mistakes, face setbacks, and stray at times, but these moments are not opportunities to blame others or circumstances. Instead, you fail consciously, embracing each stumble as a valuable lesson with gratitude and humility. And when you have chosen your path, you must stand firm even when you are misunderstood, doubted, or criticized. The loneliness of going against the current is never easy, but it is the price of integrity and true commitment to yourself. This path is not the easiest. It demands growth, not just external growth, but self-leadership. It asks you to master your emotions, thoughts, and actions with intentionality and responsibility. Through this growth, you discover a profound joy, the joy of shaping your life with your own hands in a way only you can. Not everyone has the courage to embark on this journey, but it is this very journey that leads to true freedom. Freedom is not the absence of difficulty, but the freedom to choose and to own those choices. And within that freedom, you will find meaning, fulfillment, and a deep well of inner strength you may never have known existed before. Conclusion: being different is a gift, not a curse. Not following the crowd doesn't mean you're wrong, it often means you're awake. Awake to the subtle, often uncomfortable truths that many choose to ignore. Awake to the quiet, persistent voice inside you that refuses to be silenced by the clamor of conformity or the easy comfort of blending in. It means you have stopped outsourcing your decisions, stopped letting others dictate the course of your life. You've come to understand that conformity is not a virtue when it forces you to mute your own voice and live by someone else's standards. That what feels like safety is not always noble when it comes at the expense of your soul's freedom and your ability to fully express who you are. You realize that applause from the crowd means little or nothing if your own heart remains still, if your own spirit is left unacknowledged and restless. There is no heroism in simply following the majority or in trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for you. But there is something profoundly sacred and rare in standing tall and true to yourself in a world that constantly urges you to conform. It takes courage to stand alone, to choose a path that may be unfamiliar, misunderstood, or even criticized. But that courage is the mark of someone who lives not by accident or convenience, but by purpose and conviction. Being different is not about being rebellious for the sake of rebellion, nor is it about seeking attention or approval. It's about the quiet strength to live authentically, to honor your own inner truth even when it runs counter to the expectations of others. It's about being willing to walk through discomfort, uncertainty, and sometimes loneliness, because you understand that the alternative, compromising yourself, is far costlier. The journey of authenticity is rarely easy. It demands resilience when others don't understand you. It demands patience when progress feels slow or invisible. It demands grace when failure comes and when your choices don't always lead to success. But through it all, you grow not just in skill or knowledge, but in self-leadership, wisdom, and compassion for yourself. And here is the paradox. Though the path you walk may be solitary at times, in choosing it you become a light for others. By living your truth openly and unapologetically, you give others permission to do the same. You create a ripple effect that can awaken those still caught in the comfort of conformity to the power and freedom of individuality. So yes, you may walk alone for a while and the silence may feel heavy. But this solitude is not emptiness, it is the fertile ground where your most authentic self takes root and flourishes. And in that flourishing, you find a profound joy and freedom that no applause can ever replace. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.